Tone. I'm the founder and CEO of Culture Intelligence, and now we celebrate our 50th podcast today. And this is a new global CultureCast where we want to talk with global culture intelligent leaders and visionaries to increase insight and applicability in how values and culture build better business and a better world. We are now in a flywheel, and poly-crises, disruptions, wars, and social and human uncertainty, matched with AI, huge gaps in competence, and desperate need for a more sustainable world. All this at one time and in one world together. So, what is really the implication for business culture? And is it even possible to lead this anymore? To help me make sense of culture relevance and applications, I have invited a key player in the field of culture. She delivered the Tandberg culture transformation. She has traveled the world to find biggest arenas and conference programs where she shines like a star every time she's on stage. So welcome to us, old friend and founder of Corporate Spring and Happy Life, Happy Work, Annicken R.
Hello, and thank you for that introduction, Tone.
Great to have you here again. We messed up last time of bad broadband from Italy, so we have to redo this. So this is the real deal.
Yes, this is, and I'm very happy to be here in the room together with you. So.
I know, that's much better. So let's go back to when we immersed, way back in the day. You were still in Tandberg. We were both obsessed with culture, and very short, what happened to you after that?
So after 8 years with Tandberg, where I was lucky to be able to this incredible growth from 300 people to 2,000 people, we were acquired by Cisco. So as one of the world's first chief culture officers, I was able to go in and test all these amazing experiments, I must say, that I had been doing in Tandberg, because I had actually no idea how to work with culture when I started there, and got the nice title, but I had no idea what to do. So I learned at the job, to put it that way. And when we were acquired by Cisco in 2010, I was able to go out and test the same kind of methodology and the way of working with culture in big corporate America, which was a fantastic learning experience. And I actually realized that when it comes to culture, it's all about people, and people are in all kinds of organizations, in all kinds of countries, in all kinds of positions. So the same kind of approach was actually applicable to big corporate America as a small Norwegian startup. So I stayed with Cisco for 3 years, and then I realized that, this methodology and this way of thinking, this way of working, it's so needed out in the work world. So I decided to start my own company, Corporate Spring. And I've been running that for the last 11 years and worked with companies all around the world and helping them build great cultures.
Fascinating. And you have really made it fly in a way, and I can't help mentioning the butterfly. Yes. You want to give me a couple of sentences about that too?
Yes. So a few years ago, I wrote a novel called Fly Butterfly, which was my debut novel. And it actually is a lot about culture. It's about being a woman in a male corporate world and the challenges that comes with that, but also the kind of transformation that is needed in order to transform a company. You actually have to start with yourself. So it's a transformational story, both as a human being, but also as a company, how to transform a company. So I chose to write it as a novel because I believe in storytelling, and I've heard from many that they actually use that as a guidance in how they can actually work with their culture as well. So I'm very happy about that.
Fantastic way of telling the story and putting culture on the agenda. And I've seen you around the world, so I'm just fascinating to see how you really make sure that the story sticks and it's spreading the word. So well done, Annicken. And let's dive into global leadership, because that's really, at least on my mind right now, and I know it's on yours. So how can we understand what's really going on in the global arena and leadership right now?
I think there's a lot going on. I think something huge started happening around the pandemic, actually. I think that was a big awakening for many leaders and realization that the way that they had been leading their businesses and leading teams didn't really work that well anymore, and they had to relearn a lot about what leadership is. So I think that that was good in many ways. I also think that now with all the changes going on and people experiences challenges and crises and all that, I think there's a new I hope awakening, but at least a realization that leadership is not how it used to be. So you have that old-fashioned way of organizing and leading and command and control kind of leadership. We know that for quite a long time that that's not effective. But now I think leaders are realizing it doesn't work at all. And especially with hybrid work and all the changes going on, you just have to approach your organization and your people and your culture in a whole different way. Yeah. So what I think is there's an awareness that it's not working, but I think a lot of leaders are struggling with what do we do about it? Yeah. And that is where the big challenge is. And because, what happens to us as humans when we don't know something, the natural thing is to avoid it. So you have a lot of leaders that goes around and realize that they're not maybe leading the right way or, building the right kind of cultures as they should, but they don't know where to begin, what to do, how to do it. And then it's easy to not do anything.
Yeah, because then you at least don't make any mistakes.
Exactly.
And I've been thinking that the book about how now to lead hasn't been written yet. So I think that's what people are struggling to find. Tell me how to do it in a new way. And we really don't know. And that's the scary part, I think. And like you say, people are struggling to find out. So if we think about leaders not quite knowing how to lead in a new way, what's the impact for the people in the organization?
I think what's happening now is because people come to work and they have different expectations, I think. And I also think pandemic kind of, not only leadership had an awakening, but employees maybe even more had an awakening. Like, I don't want to work like this. I don't want to live like this. I don't want to, not have a life outside work. I don't want to go into the office every day. I don't want to only be told told what to do. And you have a whole new generation that actually never accepted that. So you have all these people who comes to work and not really seeing that what they want and what they need, it's not, their needs are not met. And then they are disengaged. And when you're disengaged, you're not very productive. And then you see that also have impact on companies' results.
Yeah, and this is, I think, the great paradox right now. Because what we need more than ever is the visionary thinking and the agility and the innovation and making business a new way. And then if people are less engaged than they used to be, that's going to be even harder. So it's in a way, what we need more is what we have less. So
yes.
So this is difficult. And I think this is why culture more than ever is put on the agenda, because people somehow realize this is about people.
Yes, and how people feel.
And work together and the glue between them and all that. So if we think about culture, it's not the fussiness and big back chairs and popcorn for lunch and all that. But how would you describe it? What is it really?
Well, culture is, the way I describe it, is the way you do things in your company. It is how people show up. It's what they prioritize. It's how they behave. It's what they say, what they do. So it's very much about what actually happens, not so much what you talk about or what you say or what you show off, And I have so many examples of me asking, for example, a CEO, how, what's the culture in your company like? And he says, or she says, it's great. We have, ping pong tables, free lunch, and, once a month, employees can bring their dogs to work. So our culture is great. And that's when I say, okay, well, that's great, but that's not culture. So I think there's still this whole misconception of what culture is. And I say culture is actually how you get your job done. That's like if you have your goals, you have your business objectives. Who's going to deliver on that? Oh, it's going to be the employees. Okay, so how are they going to work together? How are they actually going to do the work? How are they going to collaborate? How are they going to communicate? How are they going to solve problems? What is important? What do they prioritize? All these things, that's what makes up your culture. And that's when a lot of leaders kind of say, oh, is that what it is? Well, and some people say, we have culture is someone, that department over there do culture. Or someone else can handle our culture. We'll hire someone to just change our culture. And, coming from consultants that actually lives of helping them change culture, I say that's a very stupid idea. To just hire someone to change your culture. You should hire someone to help you in how you should change your culture, because that is, as a leader, that's your most important job, is to make sure to have the right kind of culture so you can deliver on your results.
How is the response then when you confront them with that?
Silence.
Silence. And then?
Well, I think a lot of people actually, that's when they start realizing that this is actually something they need to not only think is a nice thing to do, but a need to do. And the wise ones actually start working with more strategically and say, okay, so where do we need to start? What's the different steps? And, that is usually, okay, so you know your goals and your objectives, right? Okay, so let's look at where you are today as a company. What is your culture like today? And then look at, is this the culture that's going to take you to achieve those goals? And if not, what is the culture you will need? And then you do the exercise. And now we're coming into your area, Tone, what you're doing excellent. And that is getting some, as you talk about the data, and I talk about like the stories, is, okay, so where do you need to be? And what's the gap? And start working from there.
Yeah, exactly. And I can't help thinking, why is this so difficult to sort of absorb for leaders? Why do you think why don't they want to go in there?
Because, and it sounds maybe silly, but I think culture has a branding issue, or has like a bad rumor. The culture, the name culture, and I think you have experienced this as well. When we say culture, people's brains go to one place, and it is not about what it is. It is about this feel-good kind of thing, right? So when we talk about you have to work with your culture, people don't understand what we mean. So we have to have 3 more sentences very often to explain what that is, right? So sometimes I say you have to maybe pay more attention to how you work together. Oh, yeah, that makes sense. But then afterwards I can say, yeah, by the way, that becomes your culture. So I think it is lack of understanding of what it really is. I think that is the biggest challenge.
This is interesting, because then we need to rebrand, right?
Yeah,
we need to find a better word for it.
Yeah, rebrand, or just keep on talking about it the way the way we talk about it. No, but I think as more and more people are getting there. But I sometimes actually do use different words just so they will quicker just get it, I think. And then we can kind of explain afterwards what they actually are doing.
We are focusing more and more about the values in the culture. So values are the building blocks, whereas the culture is the holistic sum of the system. So maybe we need to go back to the values again and start to really say, what are the values we are talking about?
If you think about it like circles, I usually say like the inner circle is values, and then the values they influence the mindsets, right? And then the mindsets influence behaviors, and the behaviors becomes culture. So yes, I think it's 100% right. You have to start with values because that impacts everything. Okay,
so next sentence from us in Culture Intelligence will be about values. Right. We'll give it a pilot. But if we look at the culture for growth, which is something that we know is necessary, and it's like we said, it may be harder. What would you say the world needs right now? That's a big question, but in a cultural perspective, what would you say?
I was about to say the world needs more love.
I know, that would be the first.
Kindness and peace and understanding, yes.
But you're right.
Yeah, and that is culture as well, and I think like if we could bring those elements into work culture, the workplaces will automatically be better because then you bring in the human aspect. And I think that's missing. That is, so many people go to work and they kind of feel they have to leave their personality on the doorstep and come in and be some persona, role, play a role because that's what's expected from them. And then you don't have a genuine culture because people are kind of adapting or trying to be something else. And that's why I think, when it comes to values, you have to also, when you hire people, you build teams and organizations, to be very clear about what the values are so people can come there and align or share those values and show up as themselves. Because I think it's bad for business and it's bad for people to go around and pretending. So having a more authentic workplaces, more human workplaces, I think that's what's needed. And I think the world would be a better place as well, and people will be happier if they can just come to work and be themselves.
And I think that's a fascinating thought. And I think, if I remember right, Frederick Laloux in the Teal organization, the reinventing organization, the Teal organization, yes. He described with abundance of love. I can't, I still remember reading that, and I thought, now, how is that going to be possible? Because it sounds like no business and all love. It's like, it sounds nice, but how does it work? So how will it work really in real life if everyone can show up? Because we say that people show up as themselves, and it's really good and all that, without any focus on why they're actually there. I think that is the super interesting dilemma.
But I don't think there's any contradiction to that. I mean, of course, you come to work because you are there to deliver on, some goals and objectives and purpose. That's what comes first, right? But in your, while doing that, to be able to say what you think and be honest and feel that you don't have to pretend. Because the thing is, like, and neuroscience shows that if we are not feeling safe and we're not like feeling happy and we feel we have to protect ourselves, we actually get so much less creative and so much less smarter. And then if we are actually able to use our whole self. So this is not like, it's not like, oh, just because it's nice to be yourself. It's just you're much better at your job when you don't have to go around and be guarded because you're afraid that people will actually see who you really are. So I think it's much more that it's not a feel-good thing. This is science. This is like, it shows that it creates better results when people don't have to spend all that energy on pretending or trying to be something that they're not. So I think that's the most important thing about that. But you said, what if everything is like, how do you do this in life with the love and abundance of love and stuff? So in Tandberg, already in 2005, I actually established a department called Fun, Love and Care. So that was a group of people, and it was kind of like they were engineers and salespeople and operation people and all that. But their job was to make sure that we were, as a company, kind of sending out this signal and taking care of people, everything from new hires, making sure they all felt like embraced from day one. Like everything from the experience of coming into the reception in the canteen and all that. And that was a big thing. So actually even like the canteen people in Tandberg, they on their back, it said food, love and care. So love and care was that was part of the culture. And you could say like, oh, that can sound ridiculous, but it wasn't, because we showed we really meant it and people felt it. And the engineers, they adored like the fact that some of them were like single and living in a small apartment and say, oh, it's so wonderful to come to work because I get so much love and care here. And then they laughed, but it was true, So yes, and this Tandberg was a success story of many reasons. And one of them was that people did feel like they could come to work and they could be themselves and they felt valued, and then they were so motivated to just give it all and just work and create this, all the successes that we were able to create. That came from passion and joy and really wanting to make a difference, not because it's just a job, which I think typically happens if people don't feel they can be themselves at work.
Yeah, and this is Amy Edmondson's work, obviously, a lot with psychological safety and the fear. Someone said, actually, Elise, who used to work here, said, you're not your best when you have an angry tiger in your tail, at your tail. and of course, that is the thing, that if you are afraid of being open and honest and to be able to speak your mind, it's going to be difficult, and you're not that. Neither are you innovative, nor are you very productive. So it's in line with research. But I think there's a side understanding to that, because sometimes, at least in my experience, work is really hard, and days are not fun, and especially now, I think, and we can see it on our data, that a lot of more people now are having hard times. They're more uncertain. They are more need for belonging. They are more concerned with life balance, and so there is a higher focus on needing to connect and then again collaborate. So I think the need for what we're talking about has even increased, and we try to gather data to put really some clear insights on this, but What would you say is good if all cultures could do a small thing? What would you think it would be in real life practical action? What could they all be focusing on?
So I think one very fundamental thing for people is to feel that what they do, they come to work and they do something that's meaningful to them and they feel valued for what they do, and valued and belonging. I think very much, that it goes hand in hand as well. And I think as leaders, to never forget that people need to have these things, because we get very task oriented. And when the going gets tough, we get very practical. And then people kind of almost lose or forget about why are they there? Why do they show up at work? And all research shows that, the strongest motivator is to feel they have some kind of purpose or a meaning with what they do. And yes, belonging, and that they feel psychologically safe. And also that they feel valued for what they do. So I think as leaders, and I usually say this if there's one thing you should do, just see your people and talk to your people. Because again, when we're busy and we have so much to do, that is the first thing that leaders tend to forget to do. And it is the most important thing they should do. So I think that taking that extra time and connecting with people and talking to them and talking about also those bigger things, because especially in challenging times, we really need that inspiration. We really need also to inject that joy. And I gave a talk the other day which talked about the importance of creating passion and joy at work. And I talked about a lot of people talk about passion. There's a lot of passionate people out there, but there's a dark side of passion, and that is when you work so hard that you almost get tunnel vision, because you're just and you grind your teeth and you just work, and you can work all the way to burnout. And you see so many who ends up being there, right? Yeah. But then I said, well, but when you inject joy into that, then you get the more lightheartedness, you get the freeing up good chemicals, oxytocin, and you can laugh and all that. And I see such a difference with clients of mine. Those people who can laugh themselves through challenging times are also much more innovative, creative, and productive than those who just really are in fighter mode.
And this is I think you've probably seen or heard the threads out there in LinkedIn. The risk, you and I are at risk. We are founders, and the mental health of founders have been put on the agenda lately. Just 3-4 last weeks, and I think my take at that is that exactly you have to combine the intensely obsession about making it work while having fun, and all of a sudden there's a risk you're not having fun anymore, but you can't really. So how do you see that dilemma or that balance?
No, but I think it's right, and I think as a founder and an entrepreneur, it is very easy to get very passionate about your idea, and I've been there too, and I've gone down some paths where I probably should have stopped a bit earlier because I really wanted to make this work, right? And then you get into almost obsession, but if I do it this way or do it that way, right? And then when you take a step back and you maybe say, okay, there could be a different way and all that. But the times when I kind of wake up a little bit is when someone kind of not challenge me critically, but more with humor, So we can bring a bit more humor and lightheartedness into a project or a situation. And then you can suddenly just see it a little bit differently. So I think as entrepreneurs and founders, we have to surround ourselves with people who has a lot of positive energy, and not only the fighters, because that will, eventually kill us. So we need,
oh, help me.
No, but we need to be able to laugh. We need to be able to not take everything so seriously, and to, okay, I failed at that. That's fine. I learned something, and let's celebrate that with a bottle of champagne and move on. Those kind of things is important, and it's very easy to forget it.
Yeah, very easy. What's your biggest learning in taking feedbacks in any of this?
You mean from people? Yeah, I'm so grateful when people give me feedback, because I know how hard it is for people to do that. And sometimes I think people wait too long, actually. And they think they do it out of kindness, just like myself. Sometimes out of kindness, I might not say something right away. And then when you give feedback, people have gone down maybe a path that they could have avoided a bit earlier if someone had kind of questioned it. So I think receiving feedback is a gift, and giving feedback is also, you gift something, but I think a lot of us quickly think of it as criticism and get a bit defensive and feel attacked. But I've learned that it's such a brave thing to give feedback. So when people give me that, I'm very grateful and thank them for that. And I might not always listen to it, but at least they are telling me what they think.
Thank you.
And I'm grateful for getting that feedback. And sometimes, I have to hear it a couple of times before I actually believe in it. But I think we all can be much better at doing that for each other. I think that's
because if we could do that, a culture project could start not necessarily from the leader. It could start from anywhere in the organization, with feedback to the leader, and say with solid, honest feedback, and saying we don't have the culture we need, so let's do something. So the leader doesn't necessarily have to start all this.
No, and I would say maybe 50% of all the client work I do actually starts with someone from the organization.
Really?
Yeah.
Tell me about one of those, the best example.
Okay. So, for example, there was a company, and I knew the people, like some of the people in the company, especially I knew the leadership team. And I was kind of hearing about some challenges they had, but I expected them to come to me. And I didn't really approach them because they knew who I was and what I could do. But when that didn't happen, someone in the team came to me and say, hey, we've been waiting for our leadership team to contact you, but they haven't. So how can you help us? What can we do? And this person was leading a local team, a small team, right? There were 15 people, and it was a quite big organization. And then I said, okay, so you would like to, what if we start with you? And he had a mandate to, get some help outside. So I started up just working with a team of 15 people and showing them, what we could do with 15 people on the culture side, and the results that followed. And pretty quickly, other people started taking notice, because this team actually, their engagement went up, their energy went up, they got more productive, they started collaborating more widely with other people in the organization. So then another team came and was like, hey, whatever those guys are on, we want some of that too.
We want it too.
Yeah, so then I started collaborating, helping this other team. And soon I had help like 4 or 5 different teams in this company. And then the leadership team came and say, hey, we see what you're doing over here. Can you, help us with a greater company as well? So that happens actually quite often. So, and that's where we call the team of teams model. I think like when you have leaders who take ownership and don't sit and wait for top management to come and make change, but make change where they are and do what they can within, the framework they have. Or go outside the framework for that matter. Because, I think as long as you can prove that it's good for the team, it's good for business, they will, it will be appreciated. But they might take a little bit of risk, just like doing something that hasn't been approved from the top. But I haven't heard anyone being punished for doing this afterwards, because the results are obvious, and then it's a good thing. Yeah. And then, of course, leadership end up taking the credit afterwards.
Of course. That's why they're leaders.
And then everyone's happy.
Everyone gets what they want. But this is fascinating, because I think, and this is a secret, so you can't tell anyone, but I think that leaders' biggest fear is that someone in the organization is going to point to them and say, I think we have a bad culture. I think that's one of the worst thing a leader can experience, that someone in his or her team say that. So they will do anything they can in order to not have that input. But there's one thing that's worse than that input. That's not having it. So I think we are dealing with something really core in a company, very sensitive, very important. It's all the people. So we need to be very, very genuine and very real and very, I think in my take at it, is data driven. So we are sure that we are doing it in a very best possible way. So my question, or it's more a sharing thought with you. How can we engage leaders that haven't yet started this with a friendly invite to say, take a look at this? What would be, I think, a good motivating input for leaders who we want to wake up in this field?
So I'll give you another example. Like I was working in another big company and wanted different leaders to kind of engage with this project, and then I realized all leaders have different motivations for doing that, right? So there was one leader who I knew was really struggling with the creativity and innovation of the team. So that's, of course, then you say, okay, go and show some data that if you invest in your people and you start building culture in this way, this is the outcome. And you can see innovation typically goes up with 15%. Would you like to do that? Oh, yes, please. And another one was like, he dreamt about his legacy would be to create the greatest place to work. So he's saying, okay, how would you like me to help you to get on stage on Great Place to Work one day? Yes. And then, oh, yes, I'd love that. Okay, so let's start to work. So all leaders have like different motivations, but I think the overall is like there's so much data, so much research now, so it shows that when people are happy, engaged, inspired, thriving, and teams are working well together, you have a great culture. Companies are, this is data from Gallup, 19% more higher performance. They are 23% more profitable. They have 50% higher retention. They are more innovative. They are more creative, and they have 3 times higher shareholder value. So, when you start looking at those data, then it's very hard to defend like, oh no, I don't want that. No, we are profitable enough. No, we don't need more performance. Yeah. So this is actually what will happen if you do it. And that's when I see leaders wake up. So I usually start up with the hard facts.
Talking their language.
Yeah. But then you just like emphasize what some of them maybe need and want to hear more than others. But it's all there, all the data is there, but it's so overwhelming and it's so a lot. So I don't feel I should throw it all at them at once. But just like give them some examples. So, and I was giving a speech and this guy came over to me afterwards like, oh, I just did the calculation that if we do this, and then he showed me like the revenue of the company and, this is what it's going to be, right? It's like, yes.
Did he sign on?
Well, he still hasn't called. I don't know.
Hello out there, call. Yeah. But this is interesting. And I think the balance between talking business numbers and really making sure that the CEO can experience that he or she will get something back and engage all the people. And that's really the 2 factors that we're dealing with.
Yes.
There's the business impact and the people engagement. And if we can combine the 2, it's power.
It is.
And I think that's what we need to. This is our quest.
Yes.
And so I think it's only just begun. We're in the front of a wave, and I think this is at least my guess. It's going to be really difficult for people in business not to deal with people in business in the coming year only. So if we look at you, the Norwegian culture, you have been able to look at this in a little bit from a distance because you have successfully moved around the world a couple of times and taken different homes and houses and workplaces and all that. So what's the best of the Norwegian culture, the way you can see it from a distance?
I will say that a lot of the things that I kind of train people on and inspire and want more leaders globally to understand is to be more human, to be more, see people more, and maybe have more of a equality kind of way of meeting people. Because, for example, in the US, like the hierarchies are huge. A CEO earns like 1,000 times as much as a receptionist. So when I tell them that in Norway, the CEO earns maybe 6 times or 8 times as much as a receptionist, if he's well paid or she's well paid. So it's, the more I am out there, the more I realize like Norwegians actually has figured a lot of things out, because there's a lot of like respect for the individual. It's not a lot of a hierarchy. Most places, of course, there's exceptions from that rule as well. And people are kind of expected to be nice, to be kind. Yeah. And I think that is like, that's a lot of like, or maybe I'll say Scandinavians, but it's like this treating people with respect and value people is much more normal in Scandinavian work cultures than I see, for example, in American cultures. Yeah. And even in my book, when I wrote about this culture that the Maya Williams, who is the protagonist in the story, she creates this culture where, for example, women get to maternity leave, 9 months maternity leave. I mean, in the US, you get 6 weeks. Yeah. She creates this culture where, they celebrate their failures. In the US, you get fired if you make a mistake, in some companies. So she did all these things. And then my publisher, when they read the story, they were like, well, what a nice utopia you are like
no,
explaining.
It's Norway.
Exactly. That's what I say. It's like, that's not utopia. This is Norway. So, and they didn't believe me. Yeah. They didn't believe that was even possible. I talked about so that respect for individuals is like, I want to move to Norway. So people who read the book in the US say that if this is Norway, I want to move to Norway.
Yeah, I've experienced the same thing when I'm out delivering leadership programs with CCL. They were all like, oh, is that what Norway is? So we should really be very proud of the Norwegian culture and proud of being part of it.
Yes.
Because we are really making sure it's visible and it's documented and that it can be scaled to other. But that doesn't mean we don't have things we can improve. But we at least have a very good starting position. So if we now tune into you at the very end here, what is it that you look most forward to in this work in the coming period?
I look forward to just working with more people who get it. Because I usually say that, it's not my job to tell someone who just don't get it, you have to understand it, because that's their job to get to that place. But from the moment when they say, I get it, this is important, I need help, show me how.
Yes.
That's what I look forward. More people who just say that, without that whole having to educate them and show the data and all that work. But just like people just get it. And, I'm lucky I already have some of those. And it's pure magic, because when you come with that, from that mindset, that you're eager to learn and you get how important it is and you're willing to do the work, because both you and I know that it's not enough to just say that you want to do it. You have to put in the work.
But it's hard work.
And it's hard work. People even call culture soft thing. That's silly, because it's hard.
That was yesterday.
Yeah.
People don't call it soft anymore.
They don't. No.
No, that's over.
Okay. Well, they do in some, maybe not in Norway, but I do hear that. Unfortunately, it's still out there. That's something But I say no. It's the hardest thing you can do. So this is definitely not soft. Yeah. But I think that's. I think we're moving in that direction. We are. But I wouldn't mind if it went quicker.
I agree with you. Let's make that happen, and let's celebrate like crazy if we can get this moved over to a wider range and a wider community. Yes. That would be super.
Yes, and let's celebrate along the way as well.
Yes.
Because we have to have fun.
That's great. And with that, I think we will just, you can send one wish out to all the leaders, something that you will just send with them, and then we see what the response will be afterwards.
One wish, what one wish? Well, I wish for everyone to take a moment and just think about what kind of culture you would like to have, what kind of culture you really think would make your organization and your business just thrive. And then decide that you want to take this seriously and go out and create it. And then you just contact Tone or me, or both of us. That's fine.
And we'll make it happen.
Exactly.
Okay. Well, Annicken, this was been a blast. And I think this is not the last time we will do this, because there's so much energy in the room right now. I can just feel it. So thank you so very much for being here on the show. And let's make sure that we do this again.
Thank you so much. This was fun.
I know. Yeah. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right.
Bye.